Okay, I think we can start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Nicola Bassan, and I'm Science Officer at IOC UNESCO. And I welcome you to this third session of the Vision 2030 webinars that have been running this week. This is session 3, focusing on science and solutions for a safe and predicted ocean, and focusing on challenges 6, 7, and 8, observations, data, and forecasting, including early warning systems. Today, we have in our panel the co-chairs of the working groups that have been developing the set of 10 white papers for the 10 Ocean Decade Challenges. And this webinar is a way of collecting some of the inputs from the general audience on these white papers. So please feel free to provide your inputs in the Q&A box that you can find at the bottom of your screen. The speakers today are Nadia Pinardi, Patricia Miloslavic, Joe Callaghan, and Paula Cristina Sierra Correa. We can move directly to the program of today. We'll have a quick welcome and overview of the meeting objectives and agenda, a really quick presentation of the Ocean Decade objectives, outcomes, and the Ocean Decade ecosystem in general, the introduction to the framework of the Vision 2030 process, and to the 2024 Ocean Decade Conference in Barcelona, together with its program. Then we'll move to the core of this webinar, so the different working groups and the challenges on which they've been working on, so the presentation of the 3 challenges and the expert working groups, the overview of the white papers, and of the review survey. We will then open the floor for the last 30 minutes to written inputs in the Q&A box, so that the co-chairs can reply to any questions, but also can acknowledge any inputs and comments coming from the audience. So I will also ask the panelists and the co-chairs to have a look to the Q&A while the presentation is ongoing, and to start replying to some of the comments and some of the questions that they see coming in. So if you have any inputs, again, please share them in the Q&A box. And please note that this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded together with the presentation on the Ocean Decade website. But in the interest of time, I will leave the floor for the welcome and overview to Alison. So please, Alison, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Nicola, and lovely to see so many of you online. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I am going to be very brief because you are here to hear from the co-chair and not from me, but there was some sort of background information I guess we wanted to give to make sure everyone sort of had the context for the webinar. As Nicola said, this is the third of 4 webinars that we're running, and they're very much part of the participatory review process for the Vision 2030 process. Vision 2030, which is this, has this grand aim of really revisiting the Ocean Decade challenges and looking at what the strategic ambition of those challenges should be for the remainder of the decade, was always conceived as a community process, as a participatory process. And so sessions like this are really, really important to help us get feedback. They're, of course, being complemented by other mechanisms, including a call for written comments on the white papers, and the link will be put in the chat as we go through, as well as, of course, what's going to happen in Barcelona, and I will come to that. But it's all part of this idea that as we're collectively trying to think about the achievements of the decade so far and where the decade is going, that we need as many voices as possible in that process. So glad to have you all here today, and hope that we'll get some good feedback as we've been having in the other, or had 2 webinars so far that have been fantastic. So moving on to the next slide, please, as we get started, and many of you have seen this before, but this is really just a reminder of, I guess, the theory of change of the Ocean Decade as we move from the ocean we have to the ocean we want. And what I particularly want to emphasize here, of course, is the central place of the Ocean Decade challenges. because the Vision 2030 process is very much anchored and centered around the Ocean Decade Challenges. And this is just a reminder as to why, essentially. So as you know, the decade ecosystem, the activity, the on-the-ground initiatives are happening in the form of decade actions, which are the 50 global programs, the nearly 300 projects, the activities, the contributions that are happening all around the world, led by multiple partners, addressing, all the different endorsement criteria of the decade. But from the outset, we have structured these in a way that they have to align with or respond to and contribute to at least one or more of these Ocean Decade Challenges. And these Ocean Decade Challenges are really, they're still relatively broad, but they're really the themes, the pillars where the collective impact of the Ocean Decade happens. They were developed in 2021 or 2020, 2021 as part of the implementation plan. They're sort of loosely defined as at the time, the most pressing and immediate needs for ocean science and knowledge that could be fulfilled through the Ocean Decade. And they were identified to be large and broad, but still actionable. And they've really become, the heart of the decade in many ways, in that they structure the actions, they structure the communities of practice, they structure the ways in which people are working together around different themes, even at a regional and a national level. And the theory of change then goes that the actions that are structured around these challenges and the collective impact collectively are working towards contributing to the Ocean Decade outcomes, which were always, right from the outset of the conception of the decade, the aspirational goals of the characteristics of the ocean we want by 2030. Now, as the decade has rolled out, we're getting pretty good at tracking impact, at adjusting, at refining, at evaluating, in understanding how the actions are working. And this is through the monitoring and evaluation framework that is rolled out every year, reported in the progress report. It's a fairly operational level type understanding of what's going on, how we can improve things. At the outcome level, we also have a pretty good idea. A lot of the outcomes are tied to the targets and indicators of Sustainable Development Goal 14. We have a new knowledge product coming through UNESCO, through the IOC UNESCO, the State of the Ocean report, that tracks different narratives and storylines around these outcomes and really shows how the decade and other initiatives are moving towards contributing to these outcomes. What we're not doing yet well is really being able to say, challenges, how are we tracking progress? How are we going? How are we meeting these challenges? Where do we need to adjust or course correct and refine the way in which we're doing things to better meet these challenges? And so that's where the Vision 2030 process comes in. And so if we can move to the next slide. The Vision 2030 process really came out of that realization that there had been a lot of bottom-up momentum in the decade with the actions. Then there's the higher level sort of discussions that are going on around SDG 14 and the outcomes. But at the level of the challenges, we're missing this piece about saying, what does success look like? What is measurable success for each of the Ocean Decade challenges? And what are the milestones, the indicators, the targets that we need to be hitting between now and 2030 so that we're achieving that success? And so we've framed this in the terms of the Vision 2030 process of setting a strategic ambition for each of the Ocean Decade challenges, which is really trying to answer that question, what does success look like? And what are the indicators to track to make sure that we're going to achieve that success by the end of the decade? And very importantly, the strategic ambition and the success for each challenge is not just the knowledge. It's the data, it's the capacity, it's the partnerships, the resources, it's the infrastructure and their technology. So it's a much broader concept of success than just the science, although the science is a very important part of it. So if we can move to the next slide. How do we do this? We have counted on the invaluable support of numerous experts, over 150 experts. So we have 10 working groups, 10 expert working groups, one for each of the challenges, of course. Within those working groups, there are about 15 expert members from diverse sectors. And each working group has 2 co-chairs who have been incredibly dedicated and passionate and patient, I would say, over the last year or so, who have been developing a series of draft white papers that aim to set out a first documentation of what this working group, and including some consultations that have already happened, what this working group thinks the strategic ambition for a particular Ocean Decade Challenge could look like. And so we have 10 working groups that have produced 10 zero-draft white papers, which are the white papers that are currently being reviewed. The co-chairs are also talking amongst themselves to ensure that we're getting linkages across the decade, across the challenges, and that we're not working in silos. And this work is going to continue, including in person in a couple of weeks, not next week, in New Orleans, to really try and build out some of these linkages. So if we can move to the next slide. So we have currently these 10 zero-draft white papers, which are very much a first attempt at trying to put on paper what is a potential strategic ambition for the Ocean Decade Challenge. We are going out for public review, or we're currently in the public review process. As I said, this is a participatory process. It's very important that we get a lot of voices. That process will be open through written comments and through these series webinars until the 22nd of February. The working groups and the co-chairs are then going to continue to refine those white papers. So we have a version 1.0 of the white papers, plus a synthesis report that tries to draw together all the different threads. That the synthesis report and the next version of the white papers will be presented at the 2024 Ocean Decade Conference in Barcelona, which is in April, in a couple of months, where they'll be discussed and dialogued and debated. And following the conference, which is the 10th to 12th of April, as you can see, there will be a version 2.0 of the white papers, which will be more or less the final version, although they will continue to be living documents. And then the next big challenge is putting into action the recommendations of those white papers as we lead up to the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice and beyond through the life of the decade. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So I mentioned Barcelona, and these white papers, or the next version of the white papers, which will incorporate all your comments, reflections, and feedback, are really going to be at the heart of this conference in Barcelona. The conference in Barcelona is one of a series that happens once every 3 years. The first one was in 2021. It was a virtual kickoff conference because of COVID. So this is the first time that the community is coming together in person. 3 main aims of the conference: to celebrate achievement, to stocktake where we are, and thirdly, to set the vision for the way forward. And that's where the Vision 2030 process and its white papers come in, because you'll see in the next slide, if we can move to the next slide, that the main conference sessions are really structured around these white papers and discussing and debating and dialoguing. So the main conference is the 10th, 11th, and 12th of April. It's actually part of a whole week. So for those of you who are coming to Barcelona, as much as possible, try to be there from the 8th of April onwards, because we've got amazing satellite events happening before the conference, in addition to the satellite events and the main conference program that will happen between the 10th and the 12th. And you can see here the sessions, session 1 through session 4. They're structured in the same way webinars are being structured, at least in terms of the way that the themes and the challenges are grouped together. And really, this is the opportunity for experts from around the world, from different regions, from different countries, from different sectors, different generations, to come together and present their perspective on some of the key findings of the white paper, and then having parallel sessions in which there's going to be dialogue and debate and discussion around the findings of the white paper, so that this can be captured in a final conference outcome statement, but also help to finalize the white papers after the conference in Barcelona. I would say there's huge demand to be present in Barcelona. We've had over 5,000 requests for registration for 1,500 places. If you have registered and haven't heard yet, please be patient with us a little bit longer. We are getting through the list, and we will get back to you in the next few days with the response. But do know as well that the plenary sessions will be live streamed. So if you're not able to be in Barcelona for one reason or the other, there will be ways of viewing at least the plenary sessions where the white papers are being discussed and providing input to the process. And I think that's all I want to say. We can certainly come back to questions about Barcelona if there are any at the end and if we have time. But just a huge thank you. I have to profit well, I've got the floor, to a huge thank you to the co-chairs that are here with us this evening, not only for being here with us, but for all of their work and for leading this process so well. And looking forward to hearing their presentations, and most importantly, to hearing your feedback and thoughts on the work that has been done so far. So back over to you, Nicola. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, for well, presenting and showing us the Ocean Decade ecosystem, but also the framework of the Vision 2030 process with its timelines and deadlines. And the fact also that these documents are living documents, and so we actually welcome any inputs and feedback during these months, but also the details for the Barcelona conference and the next steps regarding this. But let's move to the core of this webinar. So the working groups, and this working group will start with working group 6, focusing on challenge 6, so increase community resilience to ocean hazards. The scope is to enhance multi-hazard early warning services for all geophysical, ecological, biological, weather, climate, and anthropogenic related ocean and coastal hazards, and mainstream community preparedness and resilience. The two co-chairs of the working group are Nadia Pinardi, Professor of Oceanography at the University of Bologna and Director of the Decade Collaborative Center on Coastal Resilience, and Srinivasa Kumar, Director of the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services and Director of the Decade Collaborative Center on the Indian Ocean. I know Nadia is with here this evening, so thank you very much, Nadia, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolo, Alison. Good evening, everybody, or good morning too. Yeah, so we are, this paper, the Vision 2030 paper, addresses challenge 6 of the Ocean Decade, that is here synthesized, increase community resilience to ocean hazards. And we believe during decade, we should try to set up a new focus on this topic that is very important for getting the coastal regions being able to foster, again, well-being, importance of good adaptability to ocean hazards, and maintain human activities. So next, please. We have quite of a large working group that is composed of different stakeholders, both from upstream, the science part, and the downstream, the practitioners, the private companies, and in general, people working in the field to get such resilience implemented. Thank you. Next one, please. So we had a long process, not so long, but very well organized by the decade, which allowed us in 6 months to arrive to a draft. And so from our starting point in June 1, we arrived today at first draft, which was built upon the contributions of this working group. You find the inputs in the appendices of the draft. We also had a very important conference recently in India at the Center for Ocean Information in COIS, where we had already a first consultation in person with people there. And we hope to arrive with you and with your comment to the final version after the Barcelona conference. Next, please. Yeah, so the strategic ambition, we think, can be synthesized in 2 major outcomes of the actions that should have this white paper as a strategic document where many parts are outlined and seen as key. The first outcome is to design people-centered multi-hazard early warning systems. So we are here talking about multi-hazard. We have, as you know, UNESCO IOC leading for many years the tsunami early warning systems. We have now the revolution of operational oceanography, and now we can face the multi-hazard aspects, even though maybe for up to the biology, maybe still to be researched, but for very getting close to have many aspects. And the second outcome, which we shouldn't forget, is that we have to use this knowledge to design adaptation plans to increase coastal resilience. So this is to prepare the population, but not only, also to see the infrastructure that we need and design how to put it in place. Okay, so here we have a particular focus on marine spatial planning processes that will allow us to adapt. Next, please. Yeah, so we went in the paper through a long list of what are the accessible hazards at this time with different level of maturity. We have the geophysical, from the geophysical, geological related hazards to the local anthropogenic and the ecological one. So now we can, we're very proud that after so many years of development, we can add, we can add so many, and the decade might give through its action many solutions to these to the early warnings or the adaptation planning against these coastal hazards. Thank you. Next one, please. So in order to understand well how to set the paper, we had to reflect on users and stakeholders of our challenge. And so we like to think about upstream stakeholders, which we are most knowledgeable of at this point, intermediate stakeholders, which are coming after, as I said, the many years of preparation of operational sonography to tsunami early warning system that produce the right data, and they will do even more after the decade, and to arrive at the downstream stakeholders, which is really what the decade might have the largest impact. So to show how to get something effective to be resilient to coastal hazards. Next one, please. So the other important part of the paper is to rephrase our working system into risks, assessment, reduction, and institutional changes, social transformation. I like to think that the institutional governance and social transformation is one of the important one, even though I'm a more of a scientist, a natural scientist myself, because I really think that it has come the time in which our products are going to be useful. And so in our white paper, we actually distinguish about many actions that could be undertaken to develop that institutional change that is so much required for coastal resilience. Next one, please. So we go in the paper through a discussion on multi-hazard evaluation frameworks, starting from observations, substantial data sets such as topography and bathymetry, predictions, doing predictions for coastal hazards is a very important topic. Impact predictions is most important, and to arrive to toolbox and visualization tools, cloud computing, new infrastructures that will allow not only to be more performant, but also share the information, be more equitable. Next one, please. So one of the main points in the paper is how to set up the monitoring, forecasting, and early warning systems. And here are some key components on how to, really set the system in detail. I don't have time now to tell you every point. I hope you will read and give us your feedback. Thank you. Next one, please. And here, just only a glance to most important part, which is outlining the vital role of observations, both in a numerical modeling and AI world, as we are going. Observations in the coastal areas have to be increased, have to be made more accurate, and so we outlined that part. We also outlined the global data sharing, the crucial data sets for warnings, and the adaptation planning data. So here you have a list of the main one, but you find in the appendices to the draft other essential data sets that are important. Next one, please. So the knowledge generation and sharing, as I said, is very much facilitated by the increasing capability from the tsunami early systems and services that are available to operational oceanography. And so here you have the last mile, so arriving to the risk knowledge. So here we show some schematic on how the generation of such risk assessment and management reduction can be done. Next one, please. I'd like to, yes. So clearly our feeling is that we are in a very special period of oceanography, and we are in a very special, with a decade. In general, we have technologies now that can step out the long, evolution of the concepts, and so here we are, thinking about advanced technology for resilience, the Internet of Things to connect sensors and climate resilient infrastructures that should be designed, and so on. And then next one, please. I hope we are almost at the end. Yes. So the white paper in synthesis talks about the key outcomes, these early warning, people-centered systems, the design and demonstration of innovative adaptation planning strategies, talks about what are the challenges for these key outcomes, adopting the multi-hazard framework, important cascading effects not yet fully understood. We recommend to use a risk framework and focus on these technologies to remove barriers to rapid innovation uptake. And then we also design expected impacts. And last, yes, I think we also in the paper, please, the next one. Feedback process. Yes, these are our questions, but I guess there should be another one. Yes. So what are we missing? And we conclude the paper by trying to outline, even from this early time on the decade, how to, what are the gaps? So we found that actually key indicators of resilience are missing from our SDGs, because we are talking about cross-cutting indicators that go across many SDGs. Then we find that we should get some action in aligning these new indicators with relevant SDGs in a novel way. And then what we really need is to establish by the end of the decade a regular consultation. And the next slide shows an initial drawing of what will be that consultation. Clearly, UNESCO IOC member states are our policymakers, our requirement setting people. And then we envisage that there should be the requirement and assessment circle that will have to start from this requirement setting and evaluate how things are being implemented. And here we talk about periodic consultation, relevant impact studies, undertake critical reviews, preparation of high-level guidance, best practices up to standards, and then the implementation at national level. So I think I have concluded with this. Just last word is that we had a real fantastic first consultation at Hyderabad in India, hosted by my co-chair, Srinivas Kumar. And we had already very important feedbacks. So please get us your feedback. We will consider very seriously, and we hope to work together in the rest of the decade toward this very challenging goal, increase coastal resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for your presentation, for showing us the main outcomes from the work of you, Srinivasa, and the whole working group during these months, including the identifying the types of ocean and coastal hazards, the different typologies of users and stakeholders that you identified and brought into consideration, but also the components of different components of coastal resilience, underlining also the institutional changes that are needed in the future to actually provide better coastal resilience, but also the multi-hazard evaluation framework and the preliminary needs and connection that you did to the needs in the white paper. Thank you very much. And if you see any questions or comments in the Q&A box, please feel free to start replying to those, and then we'll catch up again at the end in the last 30 minutes. Thank you very much, Nadia. In the interest of time, we'll move to the next group, so working group 7. Focusing on Challenge 7, expand the global ocean observing system. The scope is to ensure a sustainable ocean observing system across all ocean basins that delivers accessible, timely, and actionable data and information to all users. The two co-chairs of the working group are Patricia Miloslavic, Program Lead at the East Antarctic Monitoring Program in the Australia Antarctic Division, and Joe Callaghan, Director of Ocean Science. I see Patricia connected, and first of all, thank you very much, Patricia. We know it's very early at your latitudes, so thank you very much for being with us here. Thanks. I think you're muted, Patricia, sorry.
What about now?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. So good morning, evening, afternoon, night, everyone, and thanks for the invitation to be in here. And thanks, Nadia, for that great presentation, which opened the floor for what we're going to do next. We're going to be talking here with Joe O'Callaghan on the Challenge 7, which is expanding the global ocean observing system. So ensuring a sustainable ocean observing system across all ocean basin that delivers accessible, timely, and actionable data and information to all users. So if I can have the next slide, please. Yes, so Challenge 7 is really underpinning all of the rest of the challenges, just because it's a way we expand our knowledge through observations, providing data that will be critical to address absolutely all of the needs from the other challenges. I'm going to be talking here a little bit on background, which is the foundation and of the challenge, and also some issues that are cross-cutting, which underpin, as I said, the decade vision. But also, all this data is really important for decision-making and for the adoption of sustainable practices and developing resilience for ocean and coastal communities, as Nadia just pointed out. There is an impressive amount of information, and as you all know, we have the benefit of the Global Ocean Observing System, a program under the IOC, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, which provides a framework of to measure essential ocean variables on physics, biogeochemistry, biology, and ecosystems, which provide the minimum set of requirements that should be observed and measured to provide timely data for all users. The Global Ocean Observing System is also linked to the World Meteorological Organization, the Global Climate Observing System, GEPCO on bathymetry, the IOC, and the Tsunami Warning Center. There's also a very interesting background community, which is Ocean Ops. The Ocean Ops conferences happen every 10 years. And they have been happening already 3 times. The last one was in 2019. And these also bring together the community to discuss what has been done, what needs to be done, but more importantly also, what technologies need to be put in place to actually get what we need more closer to real time. So can I have the next slide, please? Data, as I was saying before, ocean observations are very critical for sustainable development, as they are the foundation for information delivery for decisions on sustainable development and also for the blue economy. So we need to adopt a multidisciplinary focus on observing strategies, but also not just multidisciplinary, but also on observations that are fit for purpose in geographic terms. So they go from addressing local issues to regional to global scales. Also, but this will help us achieve and provide information to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, life below the water, it's critical for climate action, which is SDG 13, but also when we address biology and ecosystem essential variables to address SDG 2 of no hunger, and when we address biogeochemical variables to SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, and SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy. These observations are required by global governance mechanisms, so they feed into several systems like the United Nations Framework on Climate Change through the IPCC reports, to the CBD Global Biodiversity Targets, the IPBES assessments, and other national assessments on states on the environment, and also are critical to provide information to proper development of the blue economy on what can be invested and where should be invested. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to go straight now to what approach we took to actually develop the white paper. The first thing we wanted to do, well, we needed to identify what are the priority geographic and thematic observations and try to also identify gaps to address in the system to deliver this challenge. And as I said before, because there was such a huge background at the international level with global frameworks, national frameworks, and at the same time across a broad range of expertise and across a range of users, what we did was the first place to take advantage of that huge amount of work done for the Ocean Ops conference. So we went to the Ocean Ops 19, which happened in 2019. All of the papers that are published in an amazing collection in Frontiers of Marine Science, and using open artificial intelligence large language model, we extracted information on author affiliations, key themes, and the ambition that was set until 2019 to try to identify the strengths and gaps in the community at the time. So just, well, now almost 5 years ago. That was our first action. Then we targeted interviews with ocean observing experts, stakeholders, and data users. These interviews provided very valuable insights for both discipline-specific and also broader national and global ambitions for an expanded ocean observing system. So these we had with Joe, we had these one-on-one interviews with a broad range of people, and we really asked them, what to your knowledge and your expertise and all the experience that you have accumulated would be really a breakthrough in the next years that we could actually achieve and bring the ocean observing system to a next level. In the third place, we did some Google surveys to the Ocean Decade programs and to all the projects that are actively involved in ocean observing to try to assess their specific areas of activity and understand their priorities within the existing rules framework of essential ocean variables. And also we look for input from the other working group teams and on their needs. So can I have the next one, please? As we analyzed the user needs and priority, everyone really needs all the observations from the ocean. The key users are the governmental bodies to inform national obligations, to inform international treaties, intergovernmental organizations and programs such as the WMO, the IOC, and the Global Climate Observing System, policymakers at the national level, but also those that discuss and go to these international meetings to address what has been achieved on international treaties. To the scientific community, scientists need to provide inform decision makers, and these decisions need to be based on best available data. To technology developers, as we progress into observations, we need to facilitate each more how the data is collected and how it can be made available in more real time. To all the marine networks that exist across the globe, both national and international levels, to the private sector that develops technologies that needs information for several things, including, for example, shipping and all the range of things that Nadia mentioned before, for philanthropy, for society, and for indigenous communities. So there's, as you say, as I said before, it's really everyone that needs ocean observations that benefits from it. Can I have the next one, please? So I'm going to just here provide some analysis of the user needs and priorities from the surveys of the Ocean Decade programs and what are the priority impact areas to be addressed. So 74% of the current programs that are under the decade need to have information for adaptation to mitigation of impacts of climate change on coasts, including indicators of sea level, temperature, biochemistry, and biodiversity. And 73% need information on capacity in disaster risk reduction, real-time forecasting of extreme events. Around 30% need information to improve integrated coastal zone management and marine spatial planning, and minimize climate and shorter-term impacts on morphodynamics, and increased capacity on environmental awareness for all operation at sea, maritime safety, search and rescue. So as you can see, a very important amount of people within the programs require these data. Can I have the next one, please? I'm going to now focus on what are the benefits of a sustainable ocean observing based on our analysis. And the first one is that a sustainable ocean observing must be fit for purpose and responsive to address a range of needs from these key users. It must be investing in foundational observations, which are those that can be used many times and can create benefits for numerous end users. We need to also adopt approaches that ensure that ocean observations can be applied for management and possibly, and serving as essential drivers and inputs to support the blue economy, forecast prediction, and any ongoing research efforts, and also to underpin achieving sustainable and expanded blue economy by increasing food production, the removal of carbon dioxide, having clean energy, and safe navigation. Can I have the next one, please? So there's a strategic ambition that was defined, which we developed through what will be the key recommendations through all of these. So it's for priority data sets, for knowledge generation and sharing, for infrastructure and process requirements, in terms of partnerships and resources, in terms of capacity development, exchange needs, and for technology and innovation solutions. So I'm going to jump directly to what are our key recommendations, because I really want your input about these. So can I have the next slide, please? Our key recommendations with regards to priority data sets are to first to prioritize all those ocean observing data sets that are society relevant and that are aligned with essential ocean variables. There's a huge amount of data out there, and we will hear more about this in the next challenge. But actually, there's much more data than we are currently having the capacity to analyze and to transform into products that are usable for those who need it. So we need to prioritize those data that are actually aligning with essential ocean variables and that are society relevant. We also need to democratize the generation, access, and processing of and use of ocean data, including the developing integrated models using artificial intelligence and machine learning tools to extract more user-ready information from existing data sets. So what we have, try to use find our AI tools that can actually bring that to for us to use. Next slide, please. Key recommendations on generation and data sharing. This is the next step. The first one was pretty much on data digging. This one is about new data. And we need to improve and integrate the interoperability of the observing system through focus, the GOOS strategy and implementation plan to support and expand the observational capacity in poorly observed ocean basins and expand the density and frequency of co-located EOV observations globally through fit for purpose and co-designing with key stakeholders, including the satellite community and regional partners and data sharing agreements. So it's basically, what do we need? Talk to the end users, all the stakeholders, what do we need to get, and how we can support it at the same time following the GOOS strategy and implementation plans. We also need to harmonize multidisciplinary observations, the physical, biochemical, and biology. Many of these observations are in silos, so we need to merge them together. Also with social, socioeconomic, cultural, societal needs, indigenous local knowledge to deliver well-mapped, well-understood, and well-managed data products, indicators, and information that responds to multilateral needs and provides sustainable coastal seas and ocean for all. This is particularly interesting because we have data on fisheries, but separately we have data on temperature, and then we try to merge this to see how the heat is moving, where we will find this particular resource of fisheries, and then expand that to the economic part of the value of that. Can I have the next slide, please? As for infrastructure, the ocean system is huge, so we really need to enable the management team, decade coordination office for ocean observing to coordinate closely with the data decade coordination office and prediction decade collaboration center to interconnect and define the new overarching and interdisciplinary decade principles, process, and activities, encompassing the thematic and the geographic dimensions in a concerted way. So not just addressing the challenges of the decade, but also fostering the development of an operational ocean data value chain worldwide, extending its implementation just beyond the more technical advanced regions. So we really need to expand and empowering GOOS to deliver a robust monitoring and operational and digital infrastructure that can deliver a rigorous system status report to a wide range of stakeholders, integrating all observing components across the disciplines. Cost operations, efficient, unify the delivery of large data sets and metadata sets, including relevant historical data sets and ensuring findability, access, and effective storage, processing, and retrieval. Can I have the next one, please? As for partnership and resources, we need to empower regional and national identification of needs, building global coordination, focusing partnership, improve communication, co-design, evaluation, and resources, but also developing incentives to reward data providers that provide fair data and invest in data assembly centers and integrated data services with export curation linked to the GOOS infrastructure. Can I have the next one, please? For capacity developments, this is critical. So we need to strengthen and expand existing training programs. There are many, but we need to expand on these. Data collection, especially analysis and modeling, promoting innovation for data processing and synthesis, and embracing cutting-edge technologies to improve data collection for both in situ and automated data acquisition, but also bring in local technical and scientific expertise that is intergenerational and equitable needs to be supported and developed to handle the different observing data streams and models that can be applied to national fisheries, tourism, ocean health, and other blue economy resources. Next one, please. And technology, try to develop and expand linkages across networks and platforms, including satellite and the use of autonomous technology, each time more pushing for observation data and data streams in real time, recognizing cloud-based and artificial intelligence opportunities, as I mentioned before. And in order for such technology to be easy to use and reliable, we need robust and affordable strong risk assessment and strategic approach to be implemented. So next one, please. I have put here some of the milestones that you can find also in the white paper, and we are very open for feedback in this section because these are quite high level, and input will be highly welcome. Some of the milestones that we envision in the next year are to have an improved and expanded national regional support and international coordination for the observing system through leadership of strengthened and well-funded GOOS management team, to have focused co-design and identification on priority needs at global, regional, and national level, through implementation and finance plans to channel increased public investment on observing platforms, technologies, and human capacity, to have had development and deployment of innovative autonomous technologies, sensors, and platforms that are easy to use, affordable, reliable, robust, to have established key partnerships and processes for co-designing, so with all the stakeholders, to implement and data sharing to respond to societal needs, and then to have the development of robust standards and requirements that support a federated digital infrastructure that can handle large data sets and integrate these different data sets, including historical, new, ensuring findability and access and effective storage, process, and retrieval. So I think that's the last one, because the next one is very specific. And I think I'm running out of time. So I'm happy to respond to questions through the chat and then go to these as I said, please take a look at these proposed milestones in the white papers and send us feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for showing us and presenting the main outputs and outcomes from the white paper, but also for underlining the foundational role of Challenge 7 as a backbone challenge also for many of the others, as we've seen also with the previous presentation, and a basement on which also the basement on which you worked, the huge amount of background that was already there, and then all the other aspects of that you consider in the white paper. But in the interest of time, let's move on to the next working group 8, focusing on Challenge 8, create a digital representation of the ocean. The scope is through a multi-stakeholder collaboration, develop a comprehensive digital representation of the ocean, including a dynamic ocean map, which provides free and open access for exploring, discovery, and visualizing past, current, and future ocean conditions in a manner relevant to diverse stakeholders. The two co-chairs of the working group are Jan Bart Kalevar, lead manager of the Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing, and Paula Cristina Sierra Correa, head of Ocean Research and Information at Invemar in Colombia. I think Paula is here with us today, so please, Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolo, and thank you for the speakers before me. The information is very interesting here. I'm co-lead of the working group number 8, and as Nicole said, the challenge 8 is to create a digital representation of the ocean. Next, please. Okay, here is our team. Thanks to all of our working group members from around the world. And without their inputs, the results would never have been the same. And thank you very much. Next one, please. Okay, about delivering the strategic ambition. The strategic ambition of Ocean Decade for challenge number 8 is to have in place by 2030 the enabling environment for the creation of an access to an increased number of digital representation and digital twin application of the ocean, delivering at minimum 10 relevant global base layers, contextualized by minimum at 10 local uses or case studies, prioritizing the global south to stress test the inclusiveness of the digital ecosystem and address challenge along the marine knowledge value chain. The following tools and services to be developed and in place by 2030, a global ocean data discovery and access services with a dynamic map viewer, a global user-friendly digital atlas of the ocean, an inclusive series of platforms, mechanisms, and tools to share and exchange marine knowledge, an ocean data help desk and data injection service, facilities and resources for capacity development and training to improve digital literacy, in link, of course, with other programs that we already have as a Ocean Teacher Global Academy, a transparent process guiding the development of global consensus-based layers. The architecture of the data and information sharing services that will be created should be compatible with the architecture of other core ocean knowledge systems that already exist, and or decision support tools and application existing or currently under development, connecting and building on what existing already. Can I have the next one, please? Thank you. Who are the users? The primary users of challenge number 8 outputs are considered to be the scientists, engineers, and experts working across the Decade action and related to the Decade coordination bodies to address the other Decade challenge. The Decade also has the ambition to leave no one behind, and the outputs that are relevant and useful for the widest possible range of users and stakeholders must also be delivered. The broader use groups are categorized in 3 items. The one, it's professional with hand-on data and handling experience. The second is the professional without hand or on data handling experiences. And the third one is non-professional, non-experts, in general, the broad public community interested in the information or the representative of the oceans. Given the diverse possibilities and application of the digital ecosystem, anticipating every potential use is challenging. In developing the strategic ambition of challenge number 8, data and information needs and priorities identified by other decade challenges that we said before, and their working groups are considered. Primary data and information users and contribution from these groups embodies key sustainable challenge for the decade, ensuring a comprehensive representation of stakeholders across all 10 challenges that we have. Users' needs are considered also as tools and services needs and also the digital content needs. Next, please. The digital content and the data and products that we are considering is the challenge should include a roadmap and timeline to broadening digital representation of currently underrepresented data sources and types in convention with the CARE principles, of course. The process to identify the global-based layers and local case studies must be transparent and overseen by an independent expert groups. We identify the needs for guiding principles to underpin the consensus building process and call for maintaining an expert group beyond the delivery of this white paper as an independent expert group. Three main issues. The first one is oversee the identification and selection of the base layers and local case studies that we say, prioritizing the Global South. The second one is act as a custodian of the consensus building process, overseeing the development and implementation of the guiding principles by the communities of practices developing the data layers. And the third one is the oversee the progress made overall and to achieve the ambition target of Challenge 8 using the milestones and KPIs. Next one, please. About the technology and innovation. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. About the technology and innovation, the decade calls for transformative. We are taking into account the data lakes while we call for the needs for a data discovery and access services. We know that some communities are moving away from this with even modern web services not sufficient for big data analysis. Data lakes are ideal for maximizing the unique value of digital twins. And while highlighted the transformative potential of data lakes, we recognize concerns of the community regarding creating copies of data and proposing that this discussion are advancing in the context of the Decade's Data Strategy Implementation Group and the Corporate Data Group to find a way forward. About the artificial intelligence, we are extensively used to process data and generate knowledge and offer many opportunities to support this strategic ambition, of course. We must consider the potential for inherent bias. Equally, if the representation of the system provides by a digital representation of the ocean systematically excludes some types of human uses, values of human ecosystems interactions, the digital twin will be a systematically biased representation of the reality it seems to capture. The recommendation or policy action are a likely results. Next one, please. About the importance and relevance of the sustainability development, this challenge is directly related to the enhanced understanding the ocean, informed decision-making, improved climate change research and mitigation, disaster prevention and response, more sustainable blue economy, biodiversity conservation, educational and awareness building, global collaboration, and data sharing. And we are aligned with the SDG 14, Life Below Waters, SDG 13, Climate Action, SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, and SDG 17, Partnership of the Goals, as a main of the SDGs that we are related. Next one. Thank you. Okay, and about our timeline in the strategic ambition, it's not only about the 2030 milestone, it's also the milestones related beyond that. And for the 2030, our milestone and indicators is related with the 10 global base layers products and 10 local case studies, Global South priorities. And after that, we are thinking about the enabling tools and services related to the data access and discovery, standards, FAIR principles, CARE principles, dynamic global digital atlas, marine knowledges, exchange mechanisms, capacity building and training facilities, and also the help desk facilities in place. The future multifaceted, multidimensional in time and space, and a digital representation of the ocean, and the regional representation it's taking place also. Can I have the next one, please? Okay, in summary, our process toward a strategic ambition settings for challenge 8 in our white paper is related to how are our users, what do they need, the digital contents needs, of course, the digital service needs, and the next steps. And about the next steps, we are agree on globally relevant data products, marine litter, pollution, marine protected areas, marine spatial planning, blue carbon, among others. Elaborate services, ideas, build on what existing, identify existing best practices, synergies with other working groups, of course. Incorporate feedback on a strategic ambition, involve relevant actions, and also the review and finalize the white paper on time. Next one, please. And it's also an opportunity that tell you about the Ocean Data 2030, the Ocean Data program, call it an Ocean Data and Information System supporting the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, Ocean Data 2030, is led by IOD of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC. I am a co-chair of IOD, and it's my responsibility to tell you about that, and the development of an open source data and information system that will be linked to existing ocean information system around the world, and enable more efficient discovery of data, information, and knowledge products. The Ocean Data and Information System ODIS and the Ocean Info Hub are the central elements of the Ocean Data 2030, and hosting ocean decade projects like marine regions from global HICETER to global community, Portuguese National Oceanographic Data Center, World Ocean Database Cloud, among others. Next one, please. Have your say. The global community is invited to feedback on the 10 draft white papers, not only in the challenge age. White papers are open for review until 22 of February, and you can contribute following these links. Download the draft white paper, participate in the survey, also participating in this webinar. And for more information, you have the Ocean Decade.org webpage. And finally, I invite you, because we really need your inputs in this process. And thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you very much, Paula, for showing us the progress and the work that you've done with the working group on defining the strategic ambition for working group 8, defining the users, but also data products and the main priorities that you identified within these months of tireless work, I would say. Well, we are ended up with this last presentation, the 3 presentations for this session. Now we'll move to the Q&A session and the inputs. We've seen that many comments and questions were already arriving during the presentations, and many were already answered. But we can go back to some of the comments, and our panelists can jump in and provide any feedback. But in the meantime, we also ask to all the audience to provide feedback on the white papers that they've read, one or multiple regarding challenges 6, 7, and 8 within the chat. I'm sorry, within the Q&A box, because we're collecting all these information and synthesizing it for the review process. There was a question that I've seen regarding other email addresses that could be used to provide the comments. Please use the Vision 2030 email address that I think was shared in the chat to provide any comments, any additional comments that you would like to give to the white papers, or of course the survey that was shared already. So there's either the survey or the Vision 2030 email address. A first comment that maybe Nadia could reply to, or anyone else that would like to jump in, is that the need for more information and data goes through the need of course, measuring and monitoring different parameters, but also and even low-cost systems could be a challenge for less wealthy countries and in general for the global south. So how we can facilitate the building of monitoring systems in the global south, and what could be the next steps in the decade to achieve this this main gap.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. This is a very difficult question, and is central to the change that the decade has to bring to oceanography and to the future. So we believe citizen science has a large role to play. It is important for engaging population in raising awareness of hazards. And so it is, and in addition, it is clear that it increases many folds the number of observations, which are very important, instrumental in the digital revolution that we are living, and that will become even larger in few years. And so I think that, you know, we need a lot of capacity building, but on our side, we have also to develop these systems, I mean cloud computing systems that are accessible with internet connections without much. So we are going to remove the hardware barrier. That's my good hope, the big hope, that we will remove the hardware barrier. And that will definitely help the global south, in my opinion. And as I have written, I think that we have to exploit much more satellite data now, and also think of our in situ systems as complementary to satellite if we want to win.
Thank you very much, Nadia. And that, of course, goes then hand to hand with capacity building, which was raised as another important aspect in the comments, and also with new technological advancements, such as smart cables that could help in gathering more data from the ocean environment, which was also highlighted as a comment there. But I see Patricia would like to jump in.
Yes, thanks, Nicolo. Yeah, I would like to go back to this comment on how difficult it is for some countries to actually, even the low cost, to have them deployed. And well, of course, because our challenge is expanding the global ocean observing system, this is something that we have to discuss thoroughly. And it is true, some of the technologies are quite expensive. As we move to more friendly in terms of cost technologies, some still remain a challenge, but the idea is to have more and more of these. But there are also other ways to observe the ocean that are quite global and would not require the investment of some countries. So you know, we just got launched last week by NASA an amazing satellite, the PACE satellite, that will be, you know, collecting information on phytoplankton and temperature, and all this data is available and be, you know, the same. Every place will be monitored every 24 hours. You will get data in real time every 24 hours. So we don't just rely on deploying in situ, but you know, satellite technologies can provide a lot of data that is critically needed without having to make an investment, but the investment is made by other countries. So this is one. So we encourage the continuous development of more and more platforms that are providing data at a global level, without countries having to make small investment. But of course, not everything can be measured through satellites, at least not at the current level of technologies. We hope that will be the case in the near future, because you know, technology is advancing at great pace. But we also see, I'm a biologist as well, and I've been working on the coastal zone all my life. And there are now, you know, really small sensors that you can put on the substrate and will give you temperature, and that you just measure with your phone. This connects to what Nadia just said about the importance of citizen science. But these sensors are really, really extremely cheap. And there's a whole network globally at the moment deploying them in Africa and South America, in Europe, and you just, you know, provides different measurements of temperature at the level of where the organism is actually living in rocky shores. So I see a movement. We see a global movement of technologies evolving towards lower cost. We also see a movement towards developing and deploying very, very high level technologies and expanding that network that feeds into Ocean Ops as a metadata center. Argo floats are getting more sophisticated sensors, and these provide information at the global level as well. So we see this trend evolving with time, making that difference and that relevance of not being able to buy a costly equipment much that difference being much lower. So I really am confident that with time we will be able technology and artificial intelligence that is able to retrieve data, because that's the other thing. You get the data, but then you're not sure how to get it for a useful purpose. That difference will be less and less as technology in the measurement and technology in the obtaining of information advance. And this is getting very fast as we speak.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for these very, very interesting and valid points. I see another comment, maybe that could be related to Working Group 8. And so, Paula, how can we actually use a digital ocean, or the digital information on the ocean, to actually communicate information also on the community risks, for example, on sea level rise, and translate that information also for the common public in a way that it's not, of course, creating social issues, and it could be also connected to raising awareness on the ocean, and on helping also on ocean literacy.
Yes, thank you. It's a great question, and it's also a part of our discussion into the Working Group 8. And I think it's necessary to include the layers related to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change scenarios and projections in the coastal areas, of course, at the global level. Not only for the recent scenarios, but also in the medium and long term. And also we need to incorporate the sea level rise layers we already have in different regions. And other tipping points is also the information related to the increase of temperature of the waters, and also the ocean acidification and the trends of hurricanes. And this kind of information, it's most useful in the local case studies. Is the reason that we are including the 10 option or the 10 case studies in our 23 goals. And also we are among that we are focusing the global scale. We need to highlight the potential negative impacts in the coastal areas, mainly for in the urban areas, in the cities that have the most of the people around the world, but also in the rural areas, and mainly in the seas, the small islands, development states, because they are highly vulnerable, and we need to put this into our representatives of the ocean. And also about the issues related to COP28, the climate change. We have some mechanisms that we are following, not only by each of the countries, but also with the regions around the world. And I think it's very important to include in our challenge number 8, to put in place action related to risks and the information that the decision makers take into account.
Thank you very much, Paula, for this explanation. Other comments in the chat were mostly on the interrelation between the challenges, and yes, most of the white papers, and in this case 6, 7, and 8, have a specific chapter on the interrelation and the cross-cutting nature of the challenge and the relations with the others. So of course, in this case, the 3 challenges are strongly interconnected, especially 7 and 8, but we've been talking, of course, of operational oceanography and how to use data to actually build more resilient coastal communities. The purpose of the white papers is to actually provide the strategic ambition of these challenges within the decade, and so try to measure also what will success look like at the end of the decade if we will have done enough to actually achieve, even if partially, the challenges that are within the decade. The indicators and the measures for success, and to actually identify if we achieved the challenges, are I think one of the most difficult parts within these white papers. And so we'll need a lot of inputs also and suggestions from the different decade actions, the decade community, and the audience, for example, today, to identify the correct indicators to actually measure the success of the challenges. Please, Patricia.
Sorry. No, please. Sorry, Nicola, I didn't mean to interrupt, because I wanted to address just something that you just said. And I wanted to go back when I mentioned that we had done an analysis of the papers that had been submitted to OceanOps 19. And this, as I said, this was 2019. The papers were published between 2019 and 2020 within a collection. And we analyzed to just look at what you were just saying now. What are the thematic gaps, but also the geographic gaps, and in terms of what is being observed, but also the gaps in terms of who are the people who are actually building this community of ocean observers. And it was quite striking to us to see, well, of course, the majority of the co-authors were from, United States, European countries, Australia, and there were very, very, very few that were from South American countries or from African countries, and in general from the global South. So this is something that takes us to the need for capacity, for improving our capacity and improving the network of collaborations. Even if we expand observing system through automated measurements, and we are able to get data from geographically not so well-known places, we really need people on site that can actually make use of that data to improve the conditions and the policy and the management that takes place in those areas. So this is critical that it happens. We just don't need to expand the observing system, but we actually need to get the people in place that will actually use the data to improve livelihoods in the places they are. This was really a great lesson to learn, because we thought, well, OceanOps was quite open. This was pre-COVID, so the possibility of remote connections into a conference was still not a thing. So it was really not surprisingly, the people that were OceanOps, well, of course, did need to have the means to get there. But we hope that the co-authors, because, just collaborating with the paper would be much broader than the community that was present physically in OceanOps, and it was not much the case. The collaboration needs to be strengthened, and we need to improve, strengthen those programs that already exist. As I said, IOC has an amazing platform through the Ocean Teaching Global Academy, but this needs to be strengthened, and to strengthen these platforms, you need resources. We also have SCORE, the Scientific Committee on Oceanic Research. It has amazing programs, but these also need more resources that need to be strengthened. So there is a lot out there. We recently published a chapter in a book on blue economy that specifically addresses capacity development needs for a blue economy. And we make an analysis of everything that is already out there. Teaching, so there are, of course, the formal education channels within universities of different countries, but at the international level, there's also POGO, the Partnership for the Observation of Global Ocean, that has programs of partnerships, of fellowships, but you get 6 people per year. This is not enough. We need an army of people that are trained not just to take the observations, but to actually analyze data that comes through other data streams, not necessarily collected within the country, and then transform that into data products that are useful for the societies in which they live and to their specific problems. So as I keep reminding this, capacity development, expanding this will be critical for any expansion of anything. You can expand the observing system, you can expand our data analysis, we can expand everything. But if we don't expand knowledge within people, and we don't create this army of people that are able to use the data, we will not succeed.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for stressing the essential role of capacity development and the need to actually look at what's already out there and strengthen that connected with other initiatives and try to build up through the existing best practices that are out there. I'm looking at the clock, and I'm afraid we'll need to wrap it up. But of course, please feel free to reach out to the Vision 2030 email address, to the co-chairs that actually shared their contacts. And we'll keep collecting in the next few minutes any comments that you would like to share, and we'll then compile that and share it with all the co-chairs. But I'll leave the floor once again to Alison for the wrap-up. And I would like to thank again all the co-chairs from my side and all the audience, and all, of course, the team for their availability and time.
Great, thanks, Nicolo, and I'll be very quick because I know we're coming up to time. But thank you. I mean, thank you to all the presenters and to the great comments. We've obviously with Nicolo and Ord who have been leading this process. We've been in all of these webinars, and it's sort of like this cake that keeps getting different layers on it. But we're also seeing some really important common themes coming through, and just some of them that I noted down today. With still this question about the different priorities and the different needs for the global South and the global North. The way that we're going to make linkages across observations to data. And then Trish's last comment about capacity development. Tomorrow, the webinar on Challenge 9 is focusing about capacity development, how we're making those linkages. And that's some of the work that's still left for the co-chairs to bring to Barcelona to again be tested and ground truth. But there were some interesting specific issues that came up in this session that haven't come up in the other sessions that I thought were really important. Obviously, the infrastructure focus, which is inherent to these particular challenges, but also a lot of talk about the enabling environment. I think in some of the previous webinars we're talking a lot about the knowledge gaps and the data gaps and the information gaps, but here there was a lot more focus on some of the pieces of the enabling environment, which is a huge part of being able to succeed in implementing our strategic ambitions. I think there are elements here that we can also replicate and think about in some of the other challenges. And then adding to the list of emerging issues, I mean, as I said at the outset, part of this process is looking at what did the 2020 challenges not even think about, and their AI, data lakes, big data. Those are just some of the emerging issues that were not so at the forefront of our thinking in 2020. But it's hard to think of some of the challenges without touching on those issues now. And they add to some of the issues that have come up in the previous few days about human health, about emerging contaminants, which shows that we do need a sort of a recheck and refresh of the challenges, which is what we've been in Barcelona to do. Anyway, those are just some thoughts, some key dates coming up. One more webinar to go tomorrow, which will be focusing on challenges 9 and 10. I believe it's at 3 p.m. Paris time. The close of the review process on the 22nd of February. So if you would like to make written comments in addition to any comments you've made today, please go to the survey link. There is a town hall session at the Ocean Sciences meeting in New Orleans on the 23rd of February. It's very short, but we will have some of our co-chairs there in person, having a bit of a face-to-face. And then, of course, the Barcelona conference. Registration is now closed. If you've registered, you should hear back on the 20th of February. But as I said, if you're not able to come, there'll be live streaming of the plenaries and ways to engage. So thank you all very much. A huge thank you again to Nicolo and Ord, who have been leading this process so tirelessly from the IOC side. Thank you to all the co-chairs that were here today and their partners in crime and all their working groups. And thank you to all of you for coming and listening and making your comments, which is helping ensure that this is a truly participatory process. So see some of you tomorrow, see some of you in Barcelona. Have a good rest of your day and evening. Thank you very much.